everybody. This is Danny from Deep South Homestead. We're out here in WANDA's high tunnel. And guys, we're facing a dilemma here. My squash have gotten up so big in the cups, they've grown faster than we anticipated. And they're to the point now, I can't leave them in the cup any longer because they're going to be blooming here within the next few days. And I've got tomato plants back here just to show you the difference that this high tunnel has made. A couple of days ago, I planted these tomatoes in these cups, and they were only this tall. Now they're over a foot tall in this cup. The dilemma that we're facing is that I just found out here in the Deep South, we're going to be having freezing weather around the end of March and the 1st of April, sometime in that time frame, depending on how fast this thing comes down. Guys, that is what is going to be happening with the grand solar minimum. We started our plants at the same time we always start them at, and what bothers me is that it's not just my plants. We have fruit all over trees everywhere. And if it freezes all the fruit that we have, then we're going to lose all of our fruit this year. And we're just praying that for some strange reason, this doesn't come to fruition. But so we're going to have to make some decisions. We're going to have to figure out where all this stuff is going, and we're going to have to come up with something to cover them with. And just pray that, that we don't lose them. Because I've got spaghetti squash out there. It's already got long runners on them. And by the time the end of March gets here, and the 1st of April, I'm going to have huge spaghetti squash plants. And I'm more than likely going to have to build a small hoop tunnel over them and put plastic over it and just hope and pray. They're talking about anywhere between 7 and 10 inches of rain with a lot of these storms that's going to be coming through here, because we're going to have several of them that's going to happen. And that's a lot of rain, to have to contend with when you have plants and the weather. They talk about high wind and everything with these storms. My daddy always had a saying, and I'm learning that the older I get, the smarter he is. He always told me that if March comes in like a lamb, it'll go out like a lion. Or if it comes in like a lion, it'll go out like a lamb. And, well, March came in for us this year. It wasn't bad at all. We had beautiful weather. It was actually nice. And the thought crossed my mind at that point of what my dad had told me. It came in like a lamb. It wasn't bad. And it looks like what he told me is going to end up being true. It's going to go out like a lion. In other words, it's going to go out bad. And with that happening, I guess I should have paid more attention to what the wisdom of my father taught me. Because the bottom line is this: if I was 100% dependent upon all this, and I made that mistake, and I didn't have any more seed, I would be screwed if I was in a life or death situation. So the thing about it is we're going to have to understand that as we move forward into this solar minimum that's coming, or is already here now, that life as we know it is going to be different as far as trying to grow things. Now that's the beauty of the high tunnels here, is that we have the option to keep things alive in here. We've got our snap beans in here, and the onions and the tomatoes and the corn and all this kind of stuff is in here. But you can't survive on just a few bean plants here. We've got probably 50 plants right here and probably 40 or 50 over there that's not going to provide enough for our family of me and Wanda to have enough to eat and can. It's just not going to do it. It would keep us with a little bit of fresh food to eat, but we have to have a variety. I mean, we have our onions in here, we have tomatoes in here, we have corn in here. I mean, we've got the kale in here. You know, we've got a lot of different things in here. We got some Cherokee pumpkins in here, and we've got some more Trail of Tear beans over here. We got some different more types of kale over yonder. We got radishes over here. You know, we have a lot of different stuff in here, but the greenhouse or high tunnel is not large enough for us to have all the varieties of everything we would like in here. So, hindsight, should I have built larger ones? I couldn't because I didn't have room to. Our land is all on hillsides, and for me to build a high tunnel, I have to create a pad for it, much like a house foundation. I'd like to build another one, but I've had to start another pad out here beside me, and it's going to take a long time for me to bring in enough dirt to build this pad up to where we can put another high tunnel up. So, you know, possibly in the future I might be able to have another one and give us a little bit more growing space. But guys, it takes a lot of area to grow a lot of food to keep yourself in enough to eat and can. And I've got Amish paste tomatoes here. I've got the new, well, ain't the new ones. I've got the hybrid celebrities here. I've got the celebrity hybrids right here. I've got the Cherokee purples back here. I've got the Umberto tomatoes back here. I've got the blueberry tomatoes back here. I've got the Creole tomatoes back here. I have a lot of different varieties of tomatoes here, and a lot of these are heirlooms, but I can't plant them close enough that they'll cross-pollinate. If I'm going to save my seed, which I always do, I've got to take these things and I got to space them out on my property at least 100 yards apart so they don't ever cross-pollinate in order to keep a true seed. But we need all these varieties of tomatoes in order to do everything that we do here at Deep South Homestead. I mean, we make salsas and ketchups, and we like our fresh tomatoes with our salads and stuff like this. The Amish paste is what we use for our salsas and our ketchups. The celebrity can be used for either one. It can be used for a eating tomato, a canning tomato, or making the salsas out of. The Umberto is a new tomato we tried this year. I don't know for sure how it's going to actually turn out, so I won't say what we're going to use it for. But the blueberry tomato makes a purple tomato when it's exposed to the sun, which is a great eating tomato as long as you let it get completely ripe. And then the let's see what the Cherokee purples is, to my notion, is the best tasting tomato you will ever eat because it just has the best taste. We like them for fresh eating, you know. And guys, the Creole tomato is another all-around great tomato that's an heirloom that can be used for freezing. It can be used for canning. It can be used for all those things. And we try to keep a variety of that stuff going on so we always have fresh seeds. So the challenge is, how are we going to salvage all these plants? Because we can't, I mean, this can't stay. The roots are already coming out the bottom. This can't stay in this cup very much longer. I'll have to plant it and bury it at least another 6 inches deep in the ground, which is what I do anyhow. I usually plant my tomatoes with post hole diggers so I can get my root system way down there. And so the dilemma is, what are we going to do with all these? How are we going to protect them with what's coming? The squash plants, I imagine, let's see, this is the 19th of March. They're talking about the 28th of March to the first part of April when all this weather's supposed to come through. My squash are already, let me see if I can get one of them out of here without damaging it. I mean, look at this. This plant is already over 16 inches in diameter. If I put that in the ground, probably in a week, it's going to be 2 foot in diameter. So for me to be able to cover it, I'm going to have a pot that's larger than that to cover it. So that's going to be our challenges. Now I have the pots, but do you know how much time it's going to take for me to cover all these things and everything? It's going to be part of it, guys. So my thing is, if you've got plants, you better be making provisions now for the end of March and the beginning of April, guys. Okay, we got a space right here. Wanda had a little squash here, but it wasn't going to make it. And it is this variety. And as I'm digging, I'm sitting here looking. We got little ribworms all in the ground down in here. So that tells me that the soil is perfect. We've done a good job amending the soil. I'm going to go ahead and take this. And when I put them in solo cups like this, I take my fingers and I put it up under it like this right here. Turn that solo cup upside down. Take your finger, mash in the bottom. It falls right out in your hand. There you go. See that root system? Perfect. Every one of them's growing straight down. They're not all wound around. That's what I was looking for. And I'm going to put this right here. You have to be very careful with squash now because squash will break right at the ground level. And you don't want to plant them any deeper than what they were in the cup. Now I'm going to press the soil around the outside edges so we don't have any air pockets because this soil is real nice and damp. Guys, look at that. All right, squash number 1 is in the ground, and that is a nice plant. One of the 4 I put over here in a vacant space in the burgundy snap beans. We're going to just, beans give off nitrogen on the roots, and we're just going to experiment and see if the squash, if it shades out too many of the beans. If it does, we'll just have to take the squash out. But we're going to just give it a shot and see how it works together. Okay guys, we've planted, this will be the 4th one in this greenhouse, high tunnel. Trying to salvage something out of it. I know they're going to get extremely large. But we've got the beans here that's going to grow up here, the Trail of Tears. Beans and squash go together, so we're going to try. Now you can prune squash. That's the one thing about them you can do is you can prune them. We're going to plant them in here because the chances are we'll lose them anyway. So rather than possibly losing them all, we're going to put some in here and just see how they do in the high tunnel. This is amazing how well they have done in just such a short time. We're going to get them in here, get the air pushed out around them. I'm going to weave the leaves around to the other side of this. Kind of help hold them up. And there we have it. We've got 4 squash in Wanda's high tunnel on the 19th of March. Alright guys, we're going to put one back in the corner over here of the high tunnel. This is my high tunnel we're in now. We're going to see how it does. We're going to plant it in amongst some onions. See how that works. The bottom line is this. We still have plenty of time in the Deep South to grow squash. It's just that I had these going and I sure didn't want to lose them because they are pretty. Okay, we got to make sure we got room here. We're gonna just, ooh, isn't that good soil? When you just take a shovel and just ram it down in there. That's nice. Really nice. Now these, a lot of y'all are going to ask about what type of squash these are. I don't know if I've mentioned it. These are the Gold Prize squash. We got these from Hoss Tool. Last year, they bore more squash than we ever imagined. We had no squash vine borers, nothing hit them. They done fantastic. Matter of fact, we finally just got a video. We finally pulled them up, and just had to throw them away because we had more squash than we could do anything with. So I'm gonna stick the sticker back by it just so we don't ever forget, because that does happen. It's easy to forget what variety something is when you're planting it. So now that leaves us with 2 squash left, and we're going to take those and see if we can find somewhere outside to put them. Okay guys, here's the razzmatazz here. You can see it's starting to leaf out a little bit. It's not very tall, but just for safety precautions, we're going to go ahead and get a big pot to go over this one also and get it covered up, just for safety reasons. I mean, we've worked with it, and what we had to pay for it is we don't want to lose it. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to get a pot to cover it up with also. Alright guys, we got the pots over everything. The way to keep the wind from blowing them off, I hope, is I put a couple of shovelfuls of dirt on top of them. I know if it rains, it'll wash them off, but if that's the case, I'll bring up a piece of wood or bricks or something and we'll stack on top of them. So hopefully, they got some holes around the top here where they can breathe. A little air can get in there. And all we can do now is wait and see in the future to whether or not they'll actually withstand all the cold that's coming and whether they'll even survive. So, thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.